Hello, my fairy souls. How are you all doing? It is Niina. You're watching Fairy Chamber channel. I've had some of my viewers expressing me that they miss the ability to binge watch my videos. So I am now very happy to introduce you to Mishmash videos. It's Fairy Chamber Mishmash. And Mishmash videos are going to be my videos put together from different teams, and you can just binge watch them 40 minutes or an hour or longer. I'm going to tie up these videos together with separate teams, so there will be videos about mermaids, Finnish mythology, Baltic mythology, and so on. And this video, my friends, is going to be about the fairies from different parts of the world. Fairy meet lovely people, it is Niina. You are watching Fairy Chamber channel. I think you have all heard about different kinds of genies. You can find genies from our collective fairy tales around the world. Most popular genie stories, they come from Middle East and Arabic countries, and the whole root of the word genie is in Arabic a word jinn. It actually means originally something that is hidden from sight or hidden from people. It's something that lives in the shadow, an invisible power. And it's also related to the Latin word genius, which has originally meant a spirit that was someone who protected human ever since they were born. So in Arabic context, genie and angel are pretty much the same, so there isn't that much difference between genies and the angels. In Quran there is different tasks given for the genies and the angels, but also that overlaps because there are so many different variations of that particular myth about the genies. So in archaeology and history there has been done research in Arabic countries that people believed to have some kinds of genies who protected them throughout their life. A genie could be a male or female, obviously, or maybe even gender neutral, I don't know. And a genie, they can exist independently, or they could have been attached to into a certain inanimate object. Most famous is the lamp. Everyone knows about Aladdin, the lamp. The genie in the lamp, or Jafar in the lamp. And then it could be a lamp, it could be a vase, it could be a box, something where people kept stuff, and it should be something that was small, where a genie could reside, and the way a genie could travel. So lamp would be ideal for that, because people used to keep the oil in the lamp and needed that to create light. Another very common place to hold a genie was in fact some semi-precious stones like opals. They were quite popular among genies. By the way, this is my finished DVD version of Aladdin. This is Aladdin, obviously. And look at those two. This is the worst graphic design on a DVD cover ever made, because they look so weird. They look so weird. Genie looks fine. Really. They don't even have that kind of expressions in the movie. If you ever want to watch a Finnish version of Aladdin, you should just watch it because of Vesa-Matti Loiri. He actually won he got this special award from Disney for making the best international voiceover for the genie. He was very good. Just as good as Robin Williams. Rest in peace. Vesa-Matti Loiri, he was hilarious as a genie. That was a well-deserved award. And this movie is worth just watching because of him. Well, it has very good Finnish voiceovers in general. Yeah. Totally off topic. Sorry. Genies can be extremely malicious towards humans, assuming the form of hideous and terrifying demons or beautiful women who trap men with their charms. When controlled by evil sorcerers, they can harm those towards whom their attention is directed. On the other hand, they can be extremely benevolent, as in the case of Aladdin's lamp genie. The most famous genies, obviously, you can find them from tales like Aladdin. You can find them from 1001 Nights, the stories from Sherazade. Is that how you pronounce her name? Sherazade? Not sure. And there's two kinds of genies in the Arabic mythology. There is the Ifrit, which is like a physically larger and powerful genie. There's also Marid, ocean and sea spirits. They're water spirits. They are the water genies. There's also genies in Quran, and the genies in Quran, they live between the two worlds. They live in a parallel dimension. They live between this human world and they live between the other world that we don't know yet. And according to the Islamic tradition, genies, they are born from smoke, coming to being from a smokeless flame. In Quran, there isn't that much information given about the genies. The scholars, they argue, are the genies angels or are angels genies, or are they two different types of creatures? I don't have really opinion about that. I'm not Christian, I'm not a Muslim, I'm very neutral when it comes to this topic. There's a bit of a difference between genies and angels in the Quran. The genies, they have their own free will and they can do what they want to. They can make their own choices, but they also need to have the responsibility of the choices that they make. They live in remote places, they live in mountains, they live in the clouds, they live in the waters and lakes and rivers and so on. Very talented sorcerers and magicians, they could control the genies, they could control them to order the time and the weather, they could control them to let them know about future events, they could control them to hear the conversations from distance. They could order them to give them information that they needed to gain more power. With rise of Christianity and Islam, these sorcerers and magicians who worked with genies, they were often persecuted no matter what their intentions were, because in Christianity and in Islam, this working with such supernatural powers was not really appropriate. So when it came to some of the most famous Arab alchemists, some of them could actually sustain their work with the genies because of their powerful patrons. In Quran there is a story of the fallen genie that is equivalent to the one in the Bible about the fallen angel. Allah created the first man, Adam, and he asked angel and the genies to bow him. But a genie called Iblis, he disobeyed. God did not approve that kind of behavior, so Iblis, he was banished from the paradise and he became the first Shaitan. The Arabic speakers, if I'm pronouncing these names wrong, I apologize, I cannot even speak English today. Concept of Satan in Islam is different than Satan in Christianity. When in Christianity, Satan is often seen as the embodiment of all evil. In Islam, Shaitan is like an umbrella term for like mischievous spirits, disobeyed spirits, or even disobeying people. And there's two ways to approach Shaitan. There is hubris, which means pride and arrogance within the human behavior. Then there is Shaitans who are almost fallen angels, and they influence people by whispering and telling them to do the wrong or right choice, and in a way they seduce people from their paths. And in a way, this whole idea of Shaitan in Quran, it's very similar than the idea of genies in Arabic folklore, of being this kind of guardian spirits of the people, because there is legends that each person was born with good and a bad genie. The other genie whispers to your ear to do the right thing, and the bad genie whispers to your other ear to do the wrong thing. So it goes quite a long way. But these are the stories from Genies. I hope you enjoyed this and maybe learned something new. Just wanted to say big thanks to everyone who has subscribed to my channel recently. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. If you enjoy my videos, please subscribe to my channel and leave it a thumbs up. If you like this video, I will see you soon. Take care and bye! Merry meet lovely people, it is Niina. You are watching Fairy Chamber channel and time to continue with the fairy series, and today's fairy is the Blue Fairy. And I think some of you might know Blue Fairy from Pinocchio at least, or from Once Upon a Time. The Blue Fairy, her origins, they come from the ancient goddess cults. The most recent effects that have blended into the story of the Blue Fairy, they came from Middle Ages and from different religious characters like the Virgin Mary, Shekinah from Judaism, and Lady of Guadalupe from Mexico. So all these kind of religious characters who are associated with the color blue. And these Abrahamic religions, they were introduced to the public more and more. The church fathers, when they wanted to convert people, many of the pagan goddesses, they were translated into, not translated, transformed, or tried to be and transformed to be Virgin Mary. This happened to hundreds of thousands of goddesses around the world. For example, in Finland, the Mielikki, the forest goddess, when Christianity arrived to Finland, first it was Catholicism and later on Lutheranism. Mielikki, if she wore the blue cape, she became the Metsä Maria, the Forest Mary. And then if she wore green cape or brown cape, that were to her original colors, because she is the forest goddess, then she remained as the pagan goddess. But with the blue cape, she became the Christian goddess. Can you say Christian goddess? I'm going to use that word now. Anyway, the whole mythology behind Blue Fairy is, I think, in the fairy tale literature, that's where her character is based. It is based on those religious goddesses. Some of these most famous ones were Isis from ancient Egypt, and her color was also blue. She was very much associated with blue, and those of you who have fascination towards ancient Egypt, this kind of blue, especially, maybe a bit darker than this, that's the royal color and the color of the higher spirit in Egyptian folklore, in Egyptian magic. But then in general, in Western countries and in countless other countries, blue is color of serenity. It is the color of purification because it is the color of water and the sky, and it is also color of high spirituality. So this is why so many goddesses around the world are connected with the color of blue, and so many religious figures as well, because it is somewhat a neutral color for many. This is also why Virgin Mary is so heavily associated with the color blue. But anyway, this is also why the Blue Fairy is the Blue Fairy. I quite recently made a video about the fairy tale origins of Sleeping Beauty, the fairy tale, and it has some creepy origins. But anyway, in that particular video I talked a little bit about the fairies and different fairy groups and those special fairies in that particular fairy tale. You might want to check that video if you are interested to understand more about the fairy lore. Anyway, the different fairies, they are associated with different colors. So fairies, depending what kind of fairies you are talking about, like in this case we are talking about somewhat a flower fairies, a woman with wings, and Flower fairies especially, they are connected to different colors. And fairies in general, at least to me, they mean nature spirits. And fairy, it can also mean just simply an invisible spirit. A fairy can be related to actions of humans as well. They can be related to actions of animals. Everything that is about life and everything that's happening. So the blue fairy especially is connected to humans and the human behavior. Then, for example, the fairy who wears green color, they are connected to the forest and taking care of the flowers and so on. The fairy who wears the red color, they are usually more earthy. They are connected to more earthy things, when the blue color fairy is more connected to the spiritual, and they are both connected to the matters of heart, and the red fairies especially the matters of love and such things. So all these kind of color associations, they are also connected with the fairies that have those qualities that they represent, the same qualities that the color represents. And in that sense, the fairy who is left with the black color, traditionally in the fairy tales she has been demonized heavily, because within Europe black has been color of misfortune and death and all kinds of weird things. And it's not completely black and white. I mean, like, before people started to wear white wedding dresses, at least in Finland people actually wore black when they got married. Actually, the white wedding dress, that was first time worn by the Queen Victoria when she got married in the 19th century. She's the one who started the fashion of white wedding dresses. And before that, wedding dress, it could be any color. And if you go to China, they wear red wedding dresses. That's because in China and in Asian countries, red is very lucky color. When in Europe, especially around during Middle Ages, this kind of bright red, it was very, very suspicious color and connected to the devil and all kinds of weird things. And anyway, I'm getting very off topic here. So the blue fairy was obviously connected with the color blue, and blue fairy, you can find that from different fairy tales, mostly as a fairy tale character. Maybe one of these little fairy tale groups or fairy godmothers. Like in Pinocchio, there is a blue fairy who helps Pinocchio on his way to become a real boy. When I was a child, I read Collodi's Pinocchio, and I remember that I absolutely hated that book and it was terrible. And now this spring we had to read it again because in school we had to illustrate scenes from Pinocchio. So I studied illustration in university. And I still hated that book. It's terrible. I hate that. And, well, if you are familiar with my channel, I like to analyze fairy tales a lot, but that's one that it's just freaky. maybe I analyzed one day again for you. Anyway, it was really difficult for me to read that because the whole story, it was written in the 19th century by Collodi, Italian writer. It's not consistent. The book is not consistent because it appeared as a series and he had like long breaks between those stories to come out. So it's not consistent. And in each story Pinocchio gets into trouble. He doesn't have any conscience and he's just like terrible brat, and he's really mean to everyone. And you know Pinocchio story, and it's much more cruel than the Disney version, which is like very, very tame. Even though some people think that Disney version is dark, that hasn't even seen darkness compared to the original story of Collodi. Okay, so in the Collodi's version, the blue fairy is such a weird character. Then in the Disney version, the blue fairy, I don't know, she's just pretty and just grants the wish. That's her job only. And then there's the blue fairy in the Once Upon a Time, and I think she's very annoying person there as well. I don't know, these pop culture doings of blue fairies, not really my taste, but still I find this mythology very interesting. The way it's connected to different gods and goddesses, and not gods, but goddesses and religious female figures around the world. That's really interesting. Back in the days, there was two types of animals connected to blue fairy. One was a blue dove, and dove, that's very much a Christian symbol as well. You can find that from many fairy tales that have like Christian origins, like many of the Grimm Brothers fairy tales. They have doves landing, and that's the sign of God. Or the blue fairy could have been connected to fireflies that were blue. I have never seen blue fireflies, but then again, we don't have any kind of fireflies in Finland. But I think there might be blue fireflies as well. And pretty much any kind of animals that fly, they have been connected to fairies as long as there has been people talking about fairies. And the color blue, of course, the animal that has the blue color, that can be connected to the blue fairy. And the whole idea of fairy and the tiny flying animal, of course they make sense because they look a little bit similar, but then from different myths around the world you can find this kind of belief for the soul being a butterfly, or a soul, a human soul living inside a butterfly or in a bird. Like in Finnish mythology, little birds, they were believed to be souls of dead children, or when a person died, it was believed that their soul would fly away as a butterfly. In Sami mythology and in Baltic mythology, there is different goddesses that are also half little birds or half butterflies. And I think you can find that from many other myths as well around the world, where there is this little fairy-like creature who is a goddess in some cultures. So the whole concept of the blue fairy goes all the way to worshipping different kind of nature deities. So that's the story of the blue fairy. I hope you enjoyed this, and I will see you soon. Take care and bye! Merry meet fairy souls, it is Niina and you are watching Fairy Chamber channel. Time to dive back into the world of Baltic mythology, and today I'm going to talk to you about fairies in Baltic mythology. This research about fairies and nymphs in Baltic mythology, it was very interesting because this particular character, Lauma or Laumes, she, because they are usually women, has gone through a huge transformation when it comes to their appearance from Mesolithic times to our modern day. Lauma or Laumes within Baltic mythology, they are connected to the goddess of the fate, Laima, within Baltic mythology. I made a video about Laima last spring. I can put the link to the description box if you haven't seen that yet. Lauma, they were the servants of Laima. It is believed that Lauma, the fairies, people believed their existence already in the Mesolithic times, way before the Baltic pantheon became what it is nowadays with different deities. Laima, the goddess, she's also connected to Semina, the earth goddess, and they are both very archaic deities. Worshipping the Mother Earth was very essential within ancient Baltic lands. Lauma, the woodland fairies, they were air sylphs, air spirits, sky wind spirits, and like in many cases when it comes to fairies, there's this kind of idea that fairies are nature spirits. So Lauma, maybe they could guard different elements. But the way people saw these laumes within the Mesolithic times, that has changed a lot during different centuries and thousands of years, because the first image of lauma was not very pleasant. They were usually very anthropomorphic. They could have the upper body of a woman, claws of a bird or feet of a bird, and middle torso would be from a horse or from a goat or a bear or a dog even. So it would be like a sphinx in Egypt, but with bird's front feet, if that makes any sense. So that's how people in Baltic countries believed that first fairies looked like in Mesolithic times, right after the Ice Age, when there were people moving to Northern Europe. Sometimes this creature could be half dog, half woman, or half horse, half woman, and look like a centaur in Greek mythology, and many times they only had one eye. And this made me think of Finnish mythology, because we have lots of stories about elves with only one eye, so it's very interesting how there's lots of anthropomorphism within Baltic mythology. There's lots and lots of anthropomorphism there, and it's really interesting. It was believed that lauma were very dangerous for men, especially these half woman, half animal fairies. They were seen some kind of seducers, but then lauma, they were also worshipped and loved by women, because lauma, the fairies and the goddesses of fate, or the servants of the goddess of fate, they were also protector of women, they were protector of children, and they were especially protectors of orphans. So there was this kind of dual aspect within them, this idea of lauma having one eye and being half woman and half horse or something. That changed, and lauma became just a woman, female spirit, and usually they were nude or naked, or they had very little clothes, like how we usually imagine fairies to look like. Slim ladies, slim half-naked ladies. Lauma, she's not really described to have wings, but maybe some of them did have wings. And they were woodland spirits, they were the sky spirits, and some of them were probably also water spirits. Also, according to some myths, lauma, they were spirits of passed away orphans. Maybe. And lauma, they lived in the forest, they lived in lakes, they lived in abandoned bathhouses, they lived in swamps, and they lived in meadows. They loved to dance and they loved to sing, and after the dance they would leave these footprints. We would see them as fairy rings, the mushroom rings. Lauma, they also could create storms and invite the rain with singing and dancing. This is also something that you can find from Slavic mythology, so maybe there is effects from there. Lauma, they were skilled in weaving and spinning. So the spinning wheel, that is the symbol of the Baltic fairy of the fate, fairies of the fate, and the spinning wheel, it is the symbol of the fate, and the thread is the symbol of human life and people who cut it. And Laima, the goddess of fate, she was thought to be talented weaver. She weaved the human lives together, and that's why people worshipped her, because she was in charge of what happened to each person in their life. There's a very lovely story in Lithuania from one particular lauma, and her name was Vaiva. It's funny because Vaiva means trouble in Finnish, but probably means something else in Lithuanian. Anyway, Vaiva was one of these lauma fairies, and it was thought that Perkunas, the thunder god, was in love with Vaiva, but Vaiva was in love with a human. Vaiva was in love with a singer god, Straublus, and it is thought that Perkunas, he took Vaiva to the skies and forced her to live there with him. And each day when it rains, Straublus tries to reach Vaiva's belt, because she has beautiful colorful belt, and that belt is the rainbow that we can see each time when it rains and sun shines at the same time. Each time when there is a rainbow in the sky, Straplus is trying to pull Vaiva back to him from Perkunas. But this is not the only story. There's also a story that Vaiva was getting married with Perkunas, but the moon was actually the one who wanted to marry her. There's lots of different versions about this story. It's all very interesting. But this explains in Baltic mythology why rainbow is born. When in Lithuania, Lauma was more connected to woodland and the fertility of the land, you could say that. Within Latvia, Lauma fairies, they were more connected to the motherhood and magic of birth. So it was believed in Latvia that when a woman died while giving birth, Lauma became the godmother of the child, or the spiritual guide of the child, some sort of a guardian angel or guardian fairy for the child, and would protect that particular child during their entire life. During the Middle Ages, when unfortunately Europe was in constant battlefield between different countries and different cultures and different religions, Lauma, all these fairies, and Laima as a goddess as well, she was completely demonized. She became an old hag. That is when the society became more patriarchal, from the time when deities were all very equal. Because if you research Baltic mythology, it is very equal there, and in some cases very matriarchal as well indeed, because some of the most worshipped deities were all women, and but without any slashing of the male deities, which is very interesting. When we come into Middle Ages, the female deities, they become more and more demonized, or some of them they become more and more demonized. Laima was one of them, and all the fairies, they got the same treatment. Laima and the Laumes, they were turned into evil old hags, and when before Lauma was seen as someone who guarded the child and was the protector of the orphans, now Lauma was someone who killed the child, or purposely killed the mother so that they could keep the child for themselves. In a way, the whole family of Baltic deities, it was destroyed when this happened, which is quite unfortunate. And this is a fate that Lauma shared with several different goddesses around the world. So what do you think about Baltic fairies and the story of Lauma? I find it rather enduring and quite beautiful indeed. And there is lots of connections there to Slavic mythology, but then again there's also connections to all mythologies, because human brains, they are wired to think the same way no matter where we are. So thank you for watching, guys. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it thumbs up and subscribe to my channel to hear more myths from Baltic mythology. I think I have covered pretty much so far, but I'm always looking forward to new things, because Baltic mythology is something that I've become more and more interested. There's something very profound in it. So thank you for watching, guys, and I will see you soon. Take care. Bye. Merry meet fairy souls, it is Niina and you're watching Fairy Chamber channel. Have you ever heard from the Klabautermann or Klabautermann? Hope I'm pronouncing that right. I should, because I studied German for freaking 9 years. And anyway, Klabautermann is a character for mostly Germanic folklore, but I'm sure you can find it from many other folk tales as well, from different countries and cultures. But this character, it's not particularly linked to Germany, it's mostly linked to Baltic Sea, because this character is a ship elf or something like that. Those of you who have watched my videos, especially about the fairy species now for a longer time, I hope you have started to understand that belief for so-called invisible spirits that was extremely strong in the pagan times all over the world. But even when Europe as a whole was pretty much becoming more and more Christianized as a continent, still belief for these invisible spirits remained, but it was considered as silly superstitions then, or old wives' tale, or kojenhöpinät or whatever you want to call them. But still, this belief, it remained for a long time. I think the biggest down happened when the Industrial Revolution started. And that's when we go from this environment that is mostly nature-based to this environment that is mostly about concrete world that is built by humans and machines. So there's no space there for invisible spirits that were mostly born from human imagination and the world, natural world surrounding them. So it's very interesting. But this is what happened to Klabauterman. He was a spirit that took care of the ships in the Baltic Sea or lived in a ship. You know, in many countries like in Finland or in Denmark or in Sweden we have characters like Nisse and Tonttu, these kind of spirits that are very attached into a certain place. Like in Finland it's usually houses or churches or castles. There's invisible spirit that takes care of that particular place. You can find creatures like that also from Germany, from German folklore, but they're not there as common as they are in Scandinavian folklore. Klabauterman, good jolly sailor spirit who lived in a boat or in a ship, and they knew all about the winds and being a sailor. Klabauterman understood the watercraft, understood about everything about the Baltic Sea, and it was a sailor spirit, an invisible sailor spirit. So Klabauterman, you could actually find similar character from myths from Denmark, from Estonia, from Finland, and probably from Sweden as well, and Germany, from all the cultures that were sailing in the Baltic Sea. But of course the creature would have different name in these different cultures, obviously, but in the end it might be the same creature, just with different name and maybe a bit different tasks. Klabauterman especially, he was believed to be a good singer, like many of the sailors were. Klabauterman, he loved ships and ship maintenance, and he was described to be this very short old man, like, you know, Tonttu in Finland or Nisse in Denmark, an elf sort of, with a brown beard many times, and a yellow striped shirt, very sailoristic, and a blue hat. Probably not like my hat, but some kind of blue hat. He also liked to smoke pipe. Klabauterman, he was very work-oriented. He knew how to haul an anchor. He liked to scrub the decks. One very common feature for Klabauterman was that if he saw some sailor to be very lazy, he would pinch them and tell them to go back to work. So Klabauterman, he was not to be seen. He was invisible spirit, like most spirits are. But then people had very strong faith for him. The sailormen had very strong faith for Klabauterman, and it was actually believed that if a sailor would see Klabauterman, it would mean disaster. They would die, or the ship would sink, or there would be a massive storm. So seeing him would be a bad omen. But it was important to keep him pleased. And how do you keep invisible sailor spirit pleased? Well, of course, you take very good care of the ship. If a sailor would wash overboard, then Klabauterman might save them, if he would see them that they are worth of saving, of course. It is the sailor spirit of the Baltic Sea, and there's lots of ship traffic still today in the Baltic Sea. I believe for the Klabauterman, it probably died in the 19th century, where you don't need so much to rely on winds or the current, but the ships that rely on engines and motors and stuff like that. So that really, in a way, killed the belief for the Klabauterman. I heard from this creature. I heard about it for the first time when I started to do this research, but I find it very interesting. So thank you for watching, guys, and I will see you on my next video. Take care and bye!